Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 201. On tonight's episode, we're going to hop back over the pond again, and we're going to talk about our good friend, the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, the bumbling fool Prince Andrew. Now, we've heard about foot massages with Prince Andrew before. John Brockman, the literary agent, is on record talking about how he walked into Jeffrey Epstein's pad one day and saw an English guy getting a foot massage, and it turned out to be Prince Andrew. So now we have an article from the Daily Mail, and there are news sources coming forward, and these sources are also talking about the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family receiving foot massages. So, how much more evidence do we need about Prince Andrew to establish that he is a liar at the very least? I mean, how can anyone defend this man at this point, considering all of the lies that have been built up and all of the lies that he has told throughout this whole entire ordeal? Where if he was an innocent man like he says he is, and he had nothing to do with any of this, he has nothing to hide, he would have just come forward. Of course, get legal counsel, retain a lawyer, but build a strategy with your lawyer where you're telling your lawyer, look, I'm not guilty. I didn't do anything. I want to clear my name. I'm the Prince of England. I can't bring this shame on my family. I need to face these accusations and prove that I did not do this. That's what any right-thinking person would do, right? You would vigorously defend yourself in a case like this. I know I would. This is some of the most heinous shit you could throw at somebody. So if somebody's throwing this kind of thing at you, these sorts of charges at you, and it's not true, well, you would think that you would be mounting a vigorous defense and you'd be doing the circuit. All of these news programs want Prince Andrew on. All of these news circuits love the royals. And in fact, we know that's why they killed the Roebuck story in the first place. So it's not like Prince Andrew, the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, couldn't go on any of these talk shows and tell his side of the story, pitch his side of the story, and try and exonerate himself. But no, he does the Emily Maitlis interview with BBC. It's Hindenburg-level disastrous, and now the dude is clammed completely up, has nothing to say, doesn't want to help nobody, and is just basically faded back into the shadows when it comes to any sort of help in this case. Now that he has the legal team employed, they're going to be the ones that are out in front of this, right? We're going to hear from them. We're not going to hear from the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family at this point. We're going to hear from his PR specialist. We're going to hear from his lawyers. We're going to hear from his so-called friends that are probably his lawyers, right? We're not going to hear from him. So now, though, we have some new witnesses coming forward talking about foot massages. And again, don't get me wrong. Look, there's nothing wrong with a foot massage, right? If you're getting a foot massage from somebody of age, somebody that's not being human trafficked, it's a professional surrounding, or you're engaged in a business negotiation with the person performing the massage, whatever, that's great, perfect. But these are women that were brought into Jeffrey Epstein's atmosphere, and they were basically slaves. So Andrew is getting his feet massaged by women that are possibly involved in human trafficking rings, or people that are being gently nudged, quote unquote, to do what they're doing by Jeffrey Epstein. And this guy acts like everything's okay, like it's no big deal, like that's just the behavior of normal people. Normal people aren't involved with human traffickers. Normal people aren't involved with pedophiles. So for Prince Andrew and his honorable self, to say that he is, he had no idea, and, this is all, he had no idea that these girls were trafficked, and it was just a foot massage. It's just, he thinks people are stupid at this point. You would have to be stupid to believe any of that nonsense. All right, so let's jump into the article and see what the Daily Mail has to say about this. This article, Daily Mail, the headline, "What Prince Andrew Really Did Inside Jeffrey Epstein's New York Mansion. Billionaire pedophile lined up 3 women to meet Duke, who was given room nicknamed Britannica and had foot massage while watching King's Speech film, says woman who was there." Well, that sounds like an adventurous day, huh? Why don't you come over here, give my feet a wash, and we can watch the King's Speech, Sounds like a fantastic movie to sit around and hang out and watch. I'm sure all the models just love that. That's exactly the kind of movie they were looking to watch. Old Joe Exotic of the Windsor family. Can you imagine this guy trying to score girls if he wasn't a royal? Talk about awkward. Talk about a bumbling fool. Talk about a moron. Good Lord. This article was authored by Mark Hookham. Pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, well, they're starting to get it right. I mean, they're calling him pedophile right here. I don't even have to correct them, so that's nice to see, right? Pedophile Jeffrey Epstein arranged for 3 young women to meet Prince Andrew at his notorious New York mansion, a former model who was part of the billionaire's inner circle claimed last night. The women, who were all in their early 20s, were told to dress up beautifully for the meetings with the Duke of York at the tycoon's $60 million home, she claimed in an exclusive interview with the Mail on Sunday. And on its face, that wouldn't be a problem, right? Girls that are in their 20s, age of consent. All right, you want to meet the Duke? That's cool. Do what you got to do. It's not my place. I don't care what people do in their spare time. I don't care who's meeting who's cavorting with who. I don't care who's spending time with who romantically. As long as it's between consenting adults, it's no one's business what anybody does. Nobody's business. But the problem here is when you look at it in context, you see that Andrew has lied about his relationship with Epstein. That Epstein was providing him girls. That Epstein was providing him women. And if we're working off of the premise that Epstein was part of an intelligence ring, and I definitely lean that way, I definitely believe that is the case at this point, then why would anyone think that Epstein wouldn't slip an underage girl in there after providing Andrew with some older girls, perhaps, girls of age, to provide that comfort level? And then the whole Virginia Roberts situation occurs. And now, well, not only is Andrew buddies with Epstein, Epstein's big game hunting here, right? He's trophy fishing, and he has a gigantic marlin on the line. Imagine the dossier he could have compiled on Prince Andrew, if he can rope him into having relations with a minor and assaulting Virginia Roberts. Imagine the sort of dossier he can create on him. And that's why it's so important, again, and I know for those of you who have been listening to the podcast forever now, basically it seems like, you know I'm always talking about context, but it's so important. And here again, it's so important because this helps build the bigger picture of just exactly who the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family is and what he was up to within Epstein's realm. At least 2 of the alleged meetings are now believed to have been during Andrew's now infamous stay with the convicted sex offender in December 2010. Now remember, he was only there to break up with him, we thought, right? Isn't that what he said? Oh, the honorable thing to do was to fly across the pond to break up with him. Basically what he said. And all of us know that's bullshit. The most naive amongst us knows that that's bullshit. He went over there because Jeffrey Epstein has that dossier, in my opinion. Jeffrey Epstein has that dirty on him. And I've been of a mind ever since we started this podcast, I've talked about information being used as capital, and information is more important than money at this point to these people. They have all the money in the world. Information leads to power, and they crave nothing more than power, and especially a man like Jeffrey Epstein. You know, a guy that's involved in things that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in. We all know the consolidation of power was part of the getting off for them. If true, the claims would undermine Andrew's account of the 6-day trip, which has plagued him for almost a decade and ultimately led to his withdrawal from public life. In his disastrous Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis last year, Andrew insisted that the sole purpose of the visit was to cut ties with Epstein. Many were astonished by his claim, and questions were raised about why he needed to stay at the mansion at all, and why he stayed for so long. I brought this up as well. You're the blood royal of England, the third-born son of the Queen of England. You could call any high-end hotel in New York, and they would fall over themselves to accommodate you and all of your guests. The Waldorf Astoria, Trump's Place, you name it. All right? Whatever the top-notch hotels are in New York, I have no idea what they might be. But whatever they are, you could have stayed there. Instead, you chose to go stay with your buddy Jeffrey Epstein. You chose to associate with Jeffrey Epstein. And now you have to deal with the consequences. The comings and goings of a string of glamorous women and celebrities, including Woody Allen, also raised eyebrows. Well, let's not just have Woody Allen in there, right? Let's talk about Katie Couric. Let's talk about Mike Wallace. Let's talk about George Stephanopoulos. The list goes on of people that were hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein even after his conviction. So let's not leave any of them out. You see, folks, all of these people that validated Jeffrey Epstein, that came around him after the first conviction especially, these people are all enablers, like it or not. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're your faves. I don't care if it's your favorite politician or your best actor. It doesn't matter. They're enablers. And there are so many people that enabled Jeffrey Epstein and validated him that need to be questioned and asked why they would be involved with somebody after such heinous crimes were committed, and yet no one in the legacy media has the courage to do so. And that's why nobody takes the legacy media serious at this point. Nobody. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It seems like nobody takes them seriously. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a few outlets and a few journalists that do a great job. But for the most part, the legacy media is an absolute dumpster fire. It is the first time a source close to the pedophile, who was found dead in his New York jail cell last year, has given an account of what happened during Andrew's stay in Manhattan. In the bombshell testimony, the insider, who we have agreed to not to name, claimed the Duke treated Epstein's house like it was his and stayed in an opulent bedroom that was dubbed Room Britannica. Oh, how fitting. Isn't it just so... I mean, do you expect any less from a guy like Andrew? He is so basic. The Joe Exotic of the Windsor family is such a basic-ass person. Epstein used Andrew to attract women to his home and as a promotion tool to rebuild his reputation after serving 13 months in jail following his conviction for sex offenses in 2008. Again, that's what I'm talking about. He used all of these enablers to validate himself, and then he would control all of these people by compiling dossiers on them whenever they were involved in disgusting acts with underage girls that Jeffrey Epstein would provide for them. And the circle of misery would just continue and continue and continue for decades, even when it was pointed out by people like Maria Farmer, even when other people have come forward after Maria and said, hey, look, there's something real wrong going on here, something real bad. They looked the other way. Nobody wanted to do shit about it. The tycoon falsely promised young women that their reward for meeting the Duke would be a bright career future, powerful connections, and money. Andrew asked one of the women whether she had a boyfriend. Epstein bragged about watching the film The King's Speech with Andrew in an exclusive screening at his home before its UK release. Boy, aren't they cool. Aren't these guys just really awesomely cool guys? They hung around together and watched The King's Speech. Aren't you so jealous? I mean, imagine hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein's bitch ass in his stupid ass outfit, them dumb ass slippers, and the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family. I'm sure that was a blast, right? Said nobody ever. What an absolute pathetic bunch of limp-wristed jerk-offs. Andrew may have had his feet massaged by a woman while watching the Oscar-winning movie starring Colin Firth, which depicts how his grandfather, King George VI, battled to overcome a stammer. I mean, wow. Are you kidding me? Talk about self-aggrandizing. Let's sit around and watch a movie about my great-grandpaps who had a speech impediment. Let's do that. Hey, Jeffrey, pass the popcorn. I mean, are these two clowns serious? And does the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family actually believe that people aren't going to be able to put the pieces together here? Come on already. A spokesman for the Duke last night declined to comment. The claims come after the newspaper disclosed in March details of an explosive book by U.S. lawyer Bradley Edwards, who has represented a number of Epstein survivors, including Prince Andrew's accuser, Virginia Roberts. Sure seems that Prince Andrew and his spokespeople are real quiet all of a sudden, huh? No rush to denial, no rush to defend themselves. I mean, I guess, obviously his legal team's telling him, look, there is no defense for this, dude. You're sitting around in your underwear getting foot massages with a pedophile, bro. How do you think we can spin this? There's no spinning this. There's no way to fix your image through something like this. Forget about it. His book showed how U.S. prosecutors conspired with Epstein's lawyers to hide the scale of his child sex abuse. Andrew has been accused of sleeping with Miss Roberts, allegations he has repeatedly and strenuously denied. Yeah, he might have denied all of it, but he's shown no proof, certainly not in my opinion. I haven't seen any evidence. I haven't seen one bit of evidence to prove that Andrew was not where Virginia said he was and that Andrew did not do what Virginia said he did. All I have seen so far or heard are these canned-ass statements, BS, talking about pizza shops and being too honorable and wearing the wrong kit and whatever other brain-dead-ass excuse this guy can come up with. That's all we've heard from him. Yet Virginia has flight logs, corroborating witnesses, people coming out and saying they saw him groping her, etc., etc. It doesn't take, the most sharp legal mind in the world to put these pieces together here, folks, okay? Because I am certainly not that. The new claims today will pile pressure on Andrew, who has been accused of failing to cooperate with an FBI probe into Epstein's sex trafficking ring. Our source was close to Epstein for several years and, like many of the women in his orbit, is from a former Eastern Bloc country which the MOS has chosen not to name to protect her. And I agree with that. If she doesn't want her to be named, I totally agree with that, because we know how these people roll in this case. We know how they try and sue people and shut people up, and how they try and intimidate people. So I could understand why sources do not want to come forward in this case. I've dealt with it myself. I've had sources that refuse to go on the record in this case, especially down in New Mexico. So that just shows you the level that this reached when Jeffrey Epstein is dead, but people are still scared to go on record. She claims not to be one of his victims, although over the course of successive interviews, she made it clear she was terrified of him. I still have nightmares that he is alive and knows that I communicate with reporters, she said. Now that's pretty chilling. What must have she seen, and what must have he said to her or threatened her with if she still feels like that after he's dead? I can only imagine the sort of intimidation and fear this maniac tried to use with these girls. And you notice, he was scared for his life the second he got into prison, right? Oh, it's cool when he's trying to flex his power on these girls, but the second he got to prison, my man was a straight bitch, right? And that's typical for people like this, typical for bullies, typical for predators. It's when it's somebody who can't defend themselves, oh, they're about it, right? All of a sudden, they're ready to go. They're tough guys. They're ready to commit crimes. Yeah, we're abusers. The second the shoe's on the other foot and a real alpha apex predator steps into the room, it becomes a whole different ballgame with people like this. And it's chilling for me to think that these girls were so scared of Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, I try and put myself in that position to think about how it must feel, and there's no way, even with how vivid our imaginations can be, we can ever put ourselves in those shoes. So when I read stuff like that in these articles, it really makes me sick to think that these girls lived in fear of this man for so long, and that even in death, this gal is still having nightmares. During Andrew's disastrous BBC interview in November, He said that he stayed in Epstein's palatial 71st Street home because it was a convenient place to stay, and it was honorable to end his friendship with the financier they did so well up until that point. Pedophile in person. Again, you're not flying over the pond to break up with your buddy, okay? If you're the Prince of England, are you kidding me? You're going to debase yourself like that? Flying over to break up with a guy like Jeffrey Epstein? The blazes out of here. Nobody's buying that. Who's believing that? Nobody believes you, okay? Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, nobody believes you. The Queen's second son likened the 21,000 square foot mansion to a railway station due to the fact that there were people coming in and out of the house all of the time. Pushed on why he stayed at the home of a convicted sex offender, he said, "Now, I went there with the sole purpose of saying to him that because he had been convicted, it was inappropriate for us to be seen together, not for us to end our relationship, not for us to not be friends anymore, but we just can't be seen together. We could still, kick it on the low, and I'm going to crash at your pad for these 5 days so we can get it in one last time, one last hurrah. But after that, I can't be seen with you. We're going to need a go-between." That is how out of touch these people are. They really thought that something like that would work, like we wouldn't dig deeper, like people weren't going to ask the hard questions. And a lot of that, again, comes from the protection that they've been given by their pals in the legacy media. They feel like they can get away with whatever they want, so they brazenly put it right in front of our faces when they're engaging in this horrific behavior. And then they have the audacity to snub their noses at us and speak down at us from their ivory towers? I don't know about you, but I've had a belly full of it. The insider, however, believes Epstein asked Andrew to New York and then invited a number of young women to meet him. "I think that it was Epstein who invited Andrew to NYC," she told the Mail on Sunday. "The girls were going to Epstein's house specifically to meet Andrew, not just Epstein. I think Andrew was incredibly useful for him as a promotion tool. He had just left jail, and to show a guest of such a level was perfect for his social capital. He was telling everyone that the prince was in the city." Yeah, of course. Of course that's what he was doing. You want to refurbish your reputation? You want to rebuild that reputation? What better vehicle to use than one of the royals? An absolutely perfect way to try and rebuild your reputation. Then again, you probably should have picked somebody better than the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family to hitch your cart to there, old Jeffo. The sources named 3 women, all in their early 20s, who she says were specifically invited to meet the Duke. The Mail on Sunday has seen evidence that at least 2 of the women, and possibly all 3, visited the mansion during his stay at Epstein's home in December 2010. That's pretty damning stuff, so the Mail says they have the receipts. The Daily Mail right now in this article is saying they have the evidence that these gals that they visited Jeffrey Epstein's home while the prince was there in December of 2010. That's pretty significant stuff, folks. Before they came, they were asked to get dressed beautifully, and as a reward, they were promised a bright career, future, powerful connections, and money, the source said. Andrew asked one of the girls if she had a boyfriend. Yeah, I bet he did. There's no doubt in my mind, I'm of the opinion that Prince Andrew is quite the depraved character. I don't think he was just, just this bumbling fool. I think, he's a depraved character, and he's, one of these guys that definitely thought that what Jeffrey Epstein was up to was funny, in my opinion. These are the kind of guys that'll sit around and laugh about a human trafficking ring, folks. And that's what I guess I'm trying to get at. That's the kind of guy that Prince Andrew strikes me as. The source claims the women would have waited in a room known as the Oval Office on the ground floor of the mansion beforehand. Girls were coming at different times. It was a lot like a private viewing, she added. One of the 3 women named by the insider was Latvian-born model Lana Zakocella, who has worked for Victoria's Secret, the company owned by Epstein's only known financial client, Les Wexner. It is all a coincidence, folks. How dare you talk about Les Wexner? He has nothing to do with this. Les Wexner has nothing to do with this. Maria Farmer, it's not like Maria Farmer was on his property or anything when Randy Bowie did what he did to her. We all heard Maria's story. We all know what Maria said. Now you add that to all of the other shit with Les Wexner, and I haven't even gotten into the financial aspects of this. We all know how I feel about the RICO case. Lord knows, all the way back in August, our first ever episode was RICO, basically. All right? So I haven't even talked about Wexner's, financial crimes here. Just his enabling of Jeffrey Epstein is enough to make you want to vomit, and enough for this man to be ostracized from society for the rest of his life. The Mail on Sunday has agreed not to identify the other two women named by the source. Ms. Zacachella, 32, was photographed arriving at the townhouse at 3:46 p.m. on December 6th. At 4:30 p.m. on the same day, Andrew was filmed peering from the door of the mansion and waving to Catherine Keating, the daughter of former Australian Prime Minister Paul Keating. Miss Keating is not one of the women named by the source. From her luxurious home in the Hollywood Hills, Miss Zacachella said she was told to go to Epstein's mansion by her agent, Jean-Luc Brunel. Well, just another coincidence, folks. That's all these are. These are all coincidences. This isn't a criminal operation. This isn't a criminal enterprise. This shouldn't be a RICO case. I mean, are you kidding me, Maureen Comey? Attorney General Berman? What are you people doing? It's an absolute joke what's going on at the SDNY right now. The only way they can ever save face at this point is if they come all guns blazing and drop every single RICO charge in the whole entire world on these people. That's the only way that I will not think that they're corrupt at this point. I'm sorry. That's just how I feel. Ms. Zacachella, who is now a health and wellness advisor, described attending a gathering at the house, but does not remember meeting Prince Andrew or even whether he was there. Jean-Luc, he would say, you, and you're going here. And we would go to these things. They happened all the time. It was part of business. There were other girls there, and there were Jeffrey's friends, men and women. I don't remember the names. I don't know if Andrew was there. I didn't know who he was. She added, I only met Jeffrey once or twice. What people won't say is that he was nice, he was intelligent, he was good fun. He never behaved badly with me. And look at this. Even in death, these people are still apologizing for him, playing apologist. Ms. Zacachella, you need to get your head checked. Are you kidding me? Even after we know what he did, what people won't say is he was intelligent. No, he wasn't. This guy was a faux intelligence type of person, right? He wasn't really an intelligent person. He surrounded himself with scientists and all of these academics, and he faked the funk like he knew what he was about. But everybody knows he wasn't as smart as he tried to come off. Please. He was criminal smart, maybe, but he wasn't smart. On December 2nd, 4 days before Miss Zacachella's visit, Andrew is believed to have been the guest of honor at a dinner organized in the mansion by PR guru and party host Peggy Siegel. Now, I did an episode on Peggy Siegel a while back, so if you haven't heard that episode and you're new to the podcast, make sure you jump back and check that out. In the following days, a string of people were seen leaving the property, including Woody Allen and his wife, Soon-Yi Previn, and Susan Hamblin, a confidant of Epstein. Speaking to Vanity Fair magazine earlier this year, Miss Siegel said Epstein had asked her to arrange guests for the party on the day of the event. She wanted to be involved, she added, because she was promoting The King's Speech, which was being released in the UK the following month and which was later crowned Best Film at the Oscars. So, all because you wanted to promote your movie, you're hanging out with Epstein still? Like, that's an excuse? Like, people are going to be like, she was trying to promote her movie, folks. It's all right that she was, enabling this pedophile, enabling this child trafficker. No big deal. I thought it was strange that someone who had a prince in his house as a house guest couldn't figure out a few people to invite for dinner, she said. On the other hand, I had my own selfish reasons, because I wanted to tell Andrew about the King's Speech. The Mail on Sunday source claimed Andrew and Epstein watched the film together in a private screening, probably organized for them by Siegel. And again, this is another person, Siegel, who says she really didn't have a relationship with Epstein. No, they weren't that close. It was all professional, and even that was just very bare minimum. Meanwhile, these people are all thick as thieves. These people are all involved in all kinds of shit together, in my opinion. And the fact that they all lie and run the same story is laughable at best at this point. I know Epstein and Andrew watched the King's Speech together before the official release because Epstein was sharing with us how fascinating it was for him to watch the movie with Andrew, she said. I mean, this is so weird. These people are so weird. I think it was Peggy Siegel who shared all the movies with him before they were released. The source claims that Epstein, who she said had a home cinema and a loft room on the top floor of the mansion, would insist on having his feet massaged while he watched films, and believes Andrew may also have had one too. Well, we heard from John Brockman that Andrew has had a foot massage, and now we're hearing from this source as well. So what, they're both lying? Why would they lie about that? Why would anyone lie about the foot massages? What do they have to gain? What would John Brockman be lying about? Especially when he thought he was talking in confidence, folks, right? So I totally believe in this foot massage thing was going on, especially considering who we're dealing with here. Whenever Epstein watched a movie, he requested girls to give him a foot massage. She said, I'm pretty certain Andrew was given the same treatment. It is unlikely they watched the movie alone and without a massage. And I doubt it was just a foot massage, to be honest with you. We know how Epstein got down. We know what they like to do. Now, I don't have any evidence of that, right? But I'm just hard-pressed to believe that these people weren't incredibly sick at every point that they possibly could be. It emerged last year that influential literary agent had claimed he saw Epstein and Andrew being given a foot massage by two Russian women. John Brockman claimed the Duke, introduced to him as Andy, complained that, unlike him, Prince Albert of Monaco was able to go out and do whatever he wants, and nobody cares. Boy, it must be rough being Prince Andrew, huh? The Joe Exotic of the Windsor family really has it rough, people. You should all really feel bad for him. At that point, I realized the recipient of the foot massage was Prince Andrew, Duke of York, and Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, he told a client in an email exchange published in a U.S. magazine. Andrew denied the claim last year during his Newsnight interview. The source said one of the three women she claims were invited to meet the Duke was regularly ordered to give foot massages in Epstein's New York home. She described a hierarchy of young women around Epstein and how those who had little or no modeling experience or came from poorer backgrounds were forced to give foot massages by Epstein. Well, boy, doesn't that fit in with how Epstein has been explained by a lot of our insiders, Maria and Virginia, etc., etc. Sure fits in with how Epstein thought about people. Oh, you're poor, or you're not trained as a model. You're good for nothing but touching my feet. That's how he thought about people. But a source close to Prince Andrew said, this has all the hallmarks of a campaign that's been waged against the Duke for more than a decade. There's never any allegation of criminality, just insinuation he's somehow done something wrong. In short, it is yet another attempt to traduce the Duke, to deliberately conflate serious cases of wrongdoing by Epstein with whether or not the Duke enjoyed a foot massage a decade ago is both misleading and counterproductive to justice. No, it is not. It provides the overall picture of the person Andrew is. It provides an overall picture for the behavior he liked to engage in. And furthermore, I don't care if they're getting you tea. If that's somebody who's being human trafficked and you're involved with it, you are complicit, my friend. Despite the steady thoroughfare of guests coming and going at the property, the source claims Epstein rarely invited friends to stay over in his house for extended periods. Andrew, however, was an exception. The Joe Exotic of the Windsor family would stay in a room decorated like a royal residence on the third floor, she claimed. She described how it had dark green walls, long curtains, and a marble bathroom. The second floor of the mansion, she said, was Epstein's personal floor. I think it was Epstein who told me that the room was decorated just like Andrew's palace, with dark green walls and a certain type of curtains. The room was even nicknamed Room Britannica. Epstein hosted plenty of guests. He loved to brag about his beautiful houses and how rich he is. If he himself stayed in the house for a month, then guests stayed for a day or two. All of them had to come for a short visit. It was different with Andrew, because he was a prince. Oh, I think it goes a little bit deeper than just being a prince. I think that, like I said, I think that Epstein went trophy fishing and he hooked himself a giant marlin, and that giant marlin happened to be Prince Andrew, and he wasn't going to let that go, especially when it came to rehabilitation time for his public image. She added, "It seems to me that Epstein used Prince Andrew to attract women. The source claimed Andrew was perfectly at home in the huge townhouse. Andrew behaved like he felt himself at home there, and he was even going to the kitchen where people were cooking meals. He moved around the house like it was his. Sure doesn't sound like somebody who isn't too close with Epstein, huh? You ever have a really good friend, folks? I'm sure you have. You go over to their house, and you don't have to ask to go into the refrigerator. You don't have to ask to use the restroom. You don't have to ask to go into the pantry to get some snacks or whatever. You just do whatever you want, right? And that's basically what was going on here. Andrew was rolling around the place like he owned it. The source described how Epstein effectively ran a cult. For years, she accepted his outrageous lie that he had only once been involved with an underage girl, and that was because he had been tricked by a fake ID document. She now, however, concedes that her former friend crippled many lives. Yeah, no shit he did. All right? There is no doubt in anyone's mind that he destroyed many lives. And also, the cult angle, how long have I been telling you folks that Jeffrey Epstein reminds me of Keith Raniere and NXIVM? In fact, I did a whole entire episode about NXIVM here on the podcast, so you might want to check that one out as well. But the cult angle is something that hasn't been explored enough. And like I've said when we've talked about that subject, it's not something that I am very well versed in. I'm not, with the psychology aspect of this is not something that I'm going to get on here and whinge about because I don't know enough about it to talk to you folks and explain it to you properly. So I can't explain it, but I know that there's an angle there, and if there's a trained psychologist would probably have a field day with something like that. Epstein's death last year emboldened the source to discuss the tycoon's relationship with Andrew. I am ready to share my thoughts and my memories. I have notes from the past, and there is a desire to share, she said. There was definitely a cult. We were scared of him, and there wasn't even a thought we could have done something that he would not like. Not a thought. It's true. When you're involved in a cult like this and you completely buy in, it's your brain goes through a whole different kind of change, and all sorts of things occur, and you become a true believer, and it's a bad situation. So I am 100% convinced that it was definitely big-time cult-like behavior going on with Jeffrey Epstein. Last night, David Boies, a lawyer who represents more than a dozen women who say they were abused by Epstein, questioned the Duke's claim that he visited the financier, pedophile, to break off their friendship. One suspects, given the length of time he was there, it was a trip like any other trip, he said. Yeah, he was there for quite a few days. It wasn't like he was there for a couple of minutes. He was there for quite a few days. That wasn't a breakup trip. That was a trip he came there because Epstein told him to, in my opinion. Epstein said, look, you know what I have on you. You've seen what I have on you. You know the information I've compiled on you. You better bring your ass back over here and help me build my reputation back up. And what does the prince do? The Joe Exotic of the Windsor family trudges right back across the pond and kisses the pinky ring. And folks, that is how powerful information is. When you are in control of the information, when you are in control of the narrative, it does not matter who you are involved with. It can be a head of state. It can be a business leader. It can be a leader in the church. Or, as we see here, it can be a royal from England. And that is exactly what we have going on here, folks, in my opinion. Prince Andrew was compelled to go over there by Jeffrey Epstein because Jeffrey Epstein controlled the information. And if you control the information and the narrative, you control everything. So Andrew went over there at Epstein's behest. There's no going over there to break up, none of that shit. And got there, and everything was like it always was with the two. They picked up, and they were thick as thieves. Had himself a nice little party. They all got it in. And then Prince Andrew split back out and tried to use the story that, oh, I was over there to break up with him. Nobody believes that. David Boies just called him out. David Boies don't believe it. Nobody believes it. The polar bears in the great Arctic North don't believe it, and the penguins in Antarctica do not believe it. Nobody, animal or man, believes that Prince Andrew flew over the Atlantic Ocean to break up with Jeffrey Epstein. So, folks, the dam is breaking, and information is starting to come out. It was a trickle, and it's starting to come out a lot faster now. And it looks like we have, instead of just a little hole in the dam, it seems like a big hole is about to break open. And I'm very happy with the way the case is moving right now. I'm happy with some of the things that are coming out, and I am looking forward to seeing all of these people brought to justice. If you'd like to contact me, you could do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, folks, we'll be back tomorrow with our usually scheduled programming. I hope everybody had a fantastic Saturday night.